Wolf and demon born, under storm the land is torn. Tendrils of darkness reach from the depths of her mind, and shadows flicker around every corner. Still reeling from Raven's horrific display of power, Kari suffers in silence. When Ginny finally returns with stories of a mirror that could help him with his problems, Kari finds herself hoping that maybe, just maybe, it could help with hers as well. With the promise of a relatively straightforward outing, Kari, Ari, and Ginny set forth to find the mirror. But what they find beyond the looking glass threatens not only Kari and her sanity, but also the world she loves. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. For today's video, as both the title and the shirt I'm currently wearing may have already given away, I am looking once again into the Demon Storm series, this time with a look at the 6th book of the series, which I will show you by picking up and turning you around. The Storm Breaks. And I have to say, full credit goes to the cover designer, not just for this book, but also for the entire series. Said cover designer is Jessica Moon, if I recall correctly. And she has done a good job so far at making very illustrative, very evocative covers that are, quite effective in highlighting the promise, the conceptual space of each potential book. But I have to credit her with this cover in particular because it is perhaps her most evocative so far, and she uses the least amount of elements that I think I've seen so far. Like, this is the most minimalist, but also the most striking of all the covers this series is showcasing. Fun fact: when I first decided to read through the Demon Storm series, this book was actually the last one that had come out. So you can imagine my surprise when I noticed a seventh book slated for release. With that in mind, I reached out to the author of the series, Valerie Storm, who very kindly told me that the series would go on for 8 books. I was fine with that. I still had a little bit more work cut out for me than I initially assumed, but that's still good. That still means I have stuff to talk about. Whether I will still be pleased by this development by the end of the year, I will let you know. For now, however, I think it is worth talking about what it is about this book that makes it distinctive. And my impressions of the book in summary are: I am not as invested in the in the author's OC as I would have to be to find this particular outing of hers to be exciting. I'm not gonna lie. The actual events described, the actual the actual environments that are being brought on page and that are the author is trying to flesh out are nevertheless quite interesting to behold. However, that interest never really turns to excitement, and for that reason, I was never really able to connect with the book in the way that I think I was supposed to connect with it, and for that reason, it just kind of went past me, even though I was trying to go through it. Still, if you've been reading through this book series so far and found it to be perhaps a little bit more enjoyable than I have, it is quite likely that you will find this book to your liking as well. Perhaps even more so, given the all of the new elements that it brings into this setting. So if you have more of a maximalist interest in your fiction, then it is likely you will enjoy it. I, as an integrationalist, or someone who looks at how how the various aspects of the world are put together, can't really say I find the same. I have that same enthusiasm drawn out of me by the events of this book. So if you like it, all the more power to you. Anyway, now that I'm done with the broad aspects, it's time I delved into some specifics. The plot of this book picks up sometime after the ending of the previous one, with the book's romantic leads once again settling into their own variants of domestic bliss, save for the occasional flare-up of Kari's mental health issues. When Guinea, a former companion of theirs, returns to the leads to recruit them for a quest, Kari starts wondering whether the object of the quest could not in fact be used to be of assistance to her as well. And from this, from this quite simple and easy to understand, easy to pick up premise, the book goes into some really weird and really wild narrative directions. Now, one could argue that each, change in the directions, in the plot's direction, actually makes, is actually perfectly logical. But when you put all of them together within one book, it starts to become a very disjointed mess because every several chapters, every bunch of chapters, roughly every fifth or sixth of the way through the book, the parameters of the of the plot change sometimes quite significantly. Leaving the reader in a constant state of, okay, what's next? And it doesn't really handle that, and the book doesn't really handle that change in stakes quite effectively, given that it constantly reels back on on what exactly the severity of those consequences is actually supposed to be, with the with the leads of this book really not suffering any major consequences until the book's latter half. And even then, these consequences aren't really treated with, I would say, the gravitas or the maturity that would really befit events events such as those, or fallout such as that, to really effectively be handled with. This book wants to be that sweeping, dramatic change that announces the closure of this series. But when you look at the actual story that is presented over the course of this book, it really represents more of a bump down the narrative journey that this book series brings its readers along with, or at least that's my impression. Still, while the plot is somewhat disjointed, it fares a little bit better than Characterization. I've already mentioned that Guinea comes back, and while it could be argued that the first half of this book is dedicated to fleshing him out, on the balance, he still comes across as a more bland character, more like a multi-staged Deus Ex Machina rather than a fully realized and living, breathing character and person in his own right. Somewhat ironic given given his actual character arc, but however I think that really highlights forget about highlights, but that really showcases how I think the author mishandled him. He hasn't exactly lost his edge, but he has lost his bristles, so to speak. He no longer has that. He no longer has that more, not antagonistic, but yeah. Let the ambulance through. Come on. Excuse me for a moment. I don't know how long this moment will last, but we're gonna go through it anyway. And I really didn't need the break to collect my thoughts. Anyway, as I was saying, Guinea no longer has that distinctive more more acidic dynamic and chemistry that he had with the leads of the series, thereby making him less interesting less interesting as a character when looking at him through when looking at his presentation within this book when compared to his presentation at his introduction. Still, when one considers how how this book very much assassinates the character of Kari, who is constantly portrayed as being helpless and clueless despite having gone through several adventures by this point, then you realize that he actually got off quite easy. Because I have to say, Kari really comes across as very foolish, very immature throughout the entire story. I have no doubt that she would have handled this this narrative that she would have gone on if she were the same character she was in the first book when she was just a teenager. Or okay, I shouldn't say just a teenager, but she actually displayed more maturity and more restraint, more control over her self, and a better capability of analyzing the environment when she was a teenager compared to how she is compared to how she's in this book, supposedly a grown-ass woman. I have to say that unfortunately for the messaging of this book and for the goals that it is working towards, I actually found Kari's evil alter ego, the Catalyst, to be a more interesting and more engaging character. So even though the book is pretty much predicated around eliminating that character, so yeah, I think it's safe to say that is not a point in which this book was able to create a strong impression. When it comes to the other characters of this book, they are more or less bit players. If I had to be perfectly honest, they show up for a scene or a small stretch of the book, say some lines, facilitate some action, and then disappear from the rest of it. They are really only there to push the characters down a particular direction that the author wants them to be pushed down on. There are some exceptions to that, but even then, these exceptions are not really exceptions from a functional perspective, because even characters that show up either more often or for longer still serve to bring the leads to the next to the next action scene, more or less. However, I will at least credit those characters, primarily reoccurring villains, for still being authentic to their characterization as they have have been established. It's not much of a compliment, but it is one. When it comes to the world building, I have to say I am primarily left with two clusters of questions. One of which I think will not be addressed because I know how this author world builds, and I'm pretty sure that that aspect of the world will not make a return. The other, I am quietly more confident that it will it will become relevant in the series moving ahead. The first cluster revolves around how exactly the magic system is supposed to work, because I think it is safe to say that what goes on within this book very much blows what has already been established about it out of the water, but without really introducing anything more substantial to it. And due to the way this book and due to the way the world building is put together, I doubt that readers will actually get more details on that. But the second cluster refers more to the metaphysics of the series and how exactly those influence the conflict. And as I said, I am quietly confident that the questions from that cluster will be answered at some point in the future of this series. Not just because that is the direction the conflict seems to be presented, but also because, um, but also because it looks as though, but also because, but also because it ties into some various established parts of the lore that I think are very likely to come back in the in the following two books. Overall, while I find myself uh, interested in the adventure narrative that this book is able to weave between its pages, the integration of that narrative within the larger tableau that the series has painted so far leaves a lot to be desired. My final rating for The Storm Breaks is a 3 out of 5. And yeah, that was my review. Thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed it, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the book itself or to my review of it, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. Ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. My books, the first of my own Heir to the Empire series, The Next Generation and the Path Not Taken, are available at various book retailers under their respective master links in the description down below. Right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out should you choose to. Also, I have a third book on the way, so now might be as good a time as any to actually check out the previously mentioned social media links. Who knows? I might just have something about that third book posted. Might. Additionally, I have a second channel where you can hear me talking about whatever crosses my mind, though it'll typically still be related to narrative analyses, but it works outside of the print medium. So primarily movies and TV shows. If that sounds interesting to you, then I suggest you go ahead and check those out. If, however, you find yourself more interested in my thoughts on the print medium as well as selected works therein, well then I suggest you stay on this channel and go through my backlog, where you will find a lot of book reviews, some writing advice videos, as well as videos on miscellaneous connected topics. If that doesn't interest you either, then I suggest you go ahead and do whatever you want the rest of your day, because it is your day after all. And yeah, that was it for me. So until next time, I'm Jonathan Taylor, and this has been the Heir's Lair.